Hey guys, it's Andrea. We really hate this episode. Stay tuned to find out why.
Welcome to the TNG Podcast, the number one place in the Alpha Quadrant to geek out about all things Star Trek: The Next Generation. I'm your co-host, Shereese.
And I'm Andrea. Today we're talking about Season 1, Episode 7, entitled Justice. Shereese, this episode was written by John D.F. Black and Worley Thorne and directed by James L. Conway. The star date in this episode is 41255.6. This is a doozy of an episode. I'm sure you have some feelings about it.
Yeah, so in just a second, Andrea's going to read the summary so we know kind of we're all caught up to what this episode's about. But before she does that, I just want to say that the first thing I wrote in my notes was, wow, I now have a new least favorite episode. I'll get into it as we go into as we tear down the episode. But there's just so much about this episode that I just really don't like. Pretty much all of it. And every minute of it was just like, are you kidding me? And granted, maybe I'm hypersensitive about a few issues, but my word, like, yeah. So we'll get into it. I have a lot of thoughts.
Definitely. All right. So before we jump into it, let me give us a plot breakdown. The Enterprise arrives on shore leave at a newly discovered planet of Rubicon 3. A small advance party from the ship are sent down to meet with the Edo, the native people of the planet. On the Enterprise, Data reports something unusual orbiting the planet, but nothing appears on the view screen. A small ball of light enters the bridge and communicates with Picard with a booming voice, warning him not to interfere with the Edo, calling them his children. So there's a lot of unpacking with this episode. So they're on the bridge and they have this like forward party go check out the planet, and they come back and they just are like beaming from ear to ear. And they're talking about how great of a place it is and how wonderful it would be for shore leave because they just finished this like very rigorous like mission of like seeding a new colony. So Dr. Crusher goes, listen, we really need some shore leave. We really need some time off. And Riker, who's super smiley, and I'm going, okay, so you totally were part of like an orgy, this planet.
Yes. And so was Tasha Yar, very clearly.
And they make love at the drop of a hat, any hat. And I think that cracks me up because the next thing that is said is Beverly going, well, wouldn't that be a wonderful place to like get some fresh air for the kids? And I'm like, wait, and like oversexed planet. You're like, let's send the kids. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, so a couple of things. So in that scene where Crusher comes in to say, like, we need some shore leave, it's really funny because Troy and Picard are in the middle of a conversation. Like, Troy is in the middle of a sentence, and Beverly walks in, and she's just like, Picard, like, totally interrupts, totally rude. And then Troy, using her amazing powers of intuition, goes, Dr. Crusher has something important to say.
I didn't think that was so much like the bait as that thing. I just thought it was passive aggressive.
I just was so irritated by that. I was like, what was the purpose of you even saying? Clearly, she just interrupted you mid-sentence. She heard you talking. She saw you talking. She has social skills. Clearly, this must be something important. But then her something important was like, we need shore leave. And I was like, come on, Bev. You could have waited till they finished the sentence. Like, that was just kind of rude.
You could have just sent that in an email.
Or a pad.
Sure.
Or just a little combat. Doo-doo. You know,
hey,
Crusher to Picard. We need some shore leave, buddy.
Yeah, what's the status on that shore leave?
Yeah, so anyways, but that's like an aside. So here's the thing. So far, we are now on episode 7, right? So far, every alien species they've come into contact with has been backwards savages.
Yep.
That are just like, you know, they're primitive, they're dangerous, they're nonsensical, they're barbaric. And almost all these aliens have been brown. So there's these brown backward savages.
Yeah.
So here we have Caucasian aliens, and instead of picturing them as primitive backward savages, they are actually idyllic. They are all blonde, and they're all
I wrote Aryan.
It's very alien. It's very Aryan race. They're all blonde, and even though clearly this is still like a quote unquote primitive race, right? They're still going with the theme of aliens are primitive, but in this case, instead of saying they are primitive barbaric savages, they're actually seen as like, they say it several times, like, this is like paradise, this is like Eden, this is like, instead of being primitive, they're seen as simple. Instead of being savages, they're seen as being like the ideal. And I just thought that was like,
or just like early in their evolution. Racist. Yeah, it is. Yeah. It's like the ideal alien race is basically the Aryan nation. It's like, what?
Yeah, super tacky.
So Rubicon 3 is actually filmed at the Donald Tillman Water Reclamation Plant, which is located in Van Nuys. And it began its operation in 1985. You can actually take a tour of this water reclamation plant. It's basically a water treatment facility. But I think in trying to like show how like reclaimed water could be used, they made this Japanese garden, which is what is the setting for Rubicon 3. And the filmmakers liked this location so much that they reused this water reclamation facility as the setting for Starfleet Academy in season 5 when Wesley...
it's Utopia Planitia?
No, it's not Utopia Planitia. It's the episode when Wesley is part of that investigation into like how that pilot died. Right, where we see Tom Paris. So they basically took, so I Googled images of the Donald Tillman Water Reclamation Facility, and it looks exactly as it does in this episode.
In the show, that's
yes.
Cool.
You can go take tours there, and you can go to the Japanese garden, which I totally want to do. It's in Van Nuys. Some other fun facts is they used it several more times as shooting locations for Deep Space Nine. It's right under the flight path of the Van Nuys airport. So while they were filming, the incoming planes were so loud that the actors had to reshoot all of their lines like in a soundstage, and then it was like dubbed over.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, which sounds like a total pain in the butt.
Yeah.
So they beam onto the planet, and you are going to a planet where like free love exists. So it's very much like Woodstock 1969, where everybody's just doing it everywhere. And that's cool. But why would you have Wesley be part of the like forward party? Like you would think that you would have, some forward parties who would deem it's, unacceptable or fine. And then they'd be like, okay, now we can send the kids. But they're like, let's just have this 15-year-old go bouncing around with the adults. And then they do those super cringy like hug greetings.
Oh my goodness.
Wesley is so cringy, but I love this. I love that Wesley is cringy for us, but he's also cringing himself. He's like, oh, I don't think I need to.
This is awkward. Yeah. So they had the away party go, like a couple people. They had just like the first officer, Yar, a couple other people go.
Sure.
And then when they came back and they said, let's send a bigger party, that's when Beverly was like, this would be a great place for the kids. They would be wonderful there. And then Picard goes, okay, Wesley, you go to see if it is a great place for the kids before we send anybody else's kids there. And he's like, I would love to, because he's an acting ensign. So yeah, you go and kind of scope it out. So they get there and they're doing these like super invasive, really close cuddles.
Yeah.
And you just see like Troy is like, okay, that's lovely. She gives like a little hug and she's like, okay, you're like very much inside of my personal space right now.
Yes.
You're a big hulking man and that's great. And also I don't know you. And then they come to Wesley and it's just like, how do you experience love? Like, how do we do this for a child? And it's like, don't you have children on your planet? Like what? What the heck?
True.
You must have children everywhere, as much sex as you guys have.
They very quickly harness a couple of kids to play with him. So obviously they're like accessible and they're around. It's not like you just clone yourselves and come out like fully formed and sexually like ready as an adult, right? Like, no, it is very weird. And I do like that at least that actress who plays like the main girl with that really bad Labradoodle poodle wig. She kind of gives him a hug and just goes like, okay, we're just going to hug you. But
yeah,
like,
she gives him like a tiny little hug and it's just like, okay, this isn't really fair for him to, because we want to do some grown-up stuff and he's not a grown-up. So let's just find some kids and drop him off and we can go do our thing.
Yes. So the kids that they wrangle to play with Wesley, I wrote WTF on my card because one of them is a girl who seems roughly Wesley's age. And then there are two boys and one of them is clearly like 25 and he's in these little shorts and he has, if I may even use the expression, he has like the happy trail of like pubic hair going from like his belly button down into his groin and it's not covered by his pants. And I watched it and I went, whoa, what the hell?
So I missed the happy trail.
Oh
and
my
I will
God.
never rewatch this episode. So I guess I'm just not going to see it. These outfits are like unreal.
No, the outfits were the most ridiculous thing. By the way,
if we can call them outfits, can we call them outfits? It was really just straps around their bodies.
Yes. Okay. So listeners, as a treat for you, I did screenshot a bunch of like really great shots of these horrendous outfits. And I'm going to put them up on our Instagram at the TNG Podcast. Come and check it out and let us know what you think. Because you know what? Also, the women that they have in those outfits have like perfect bodies. And the main guy has just like a very average body. And like, I have an average body too, so I'm not shaming him for it. But when they have you running around and bouncing, like, I thought casting could have done a better job and gotten, if this is supposed to be like a land of like fitness and everybody's free loving, but they're also running all day long and like exercising, like, you should probably throw somebody with like 6-pack abs in that, because whenever the man ran around, there was like a lot of bounce and wiggle and jiggle, and it was like, oh, this is not a good casting choice.
I didn't even notice that. I just felt like everybody was tiny and slim, and I just thought to myself, how did they find like 50 blonde white people to run around in the background that are all thin and wearing like half, like next to nothing? I just feel like I'm thinking as a casting director.
It's Hollywood.
Okay, yes, it's Hollywood, but I mean, did they stand on a street corner and say, you, not you, not you, you, do you have a sister? Okay, you and your sister, you, not you. Like, I don't know. I was just like, really? I didn't even know. I haven't seen this many people that look exactly the same concentrated in one spot.
Right.
Like, in my life, I live in LA. We've got all kinds of people. So
yeah, that was interesting. Color and rain. Yeah, no. This was a great. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go.
There's a scene where the main girl is walking with Picard and she kind of turns to the side, and I was like, oh my word, there is a slit in those shorts. The shorts are only 4 inches like from your waist. Like, they're very short shorts, and there's a slit all the way up to the actual
like waistband, basically.
Waistband.
Yeah.
I was like, what? They're barely even wearing shorts in the first place, and now the shorts are cut in half. What in the world?
I do appreciate that there are a few shots that have like elderly, and they're more covered up, which I was like,
I did notice that.
And then the kids, the girl that they have play with,
was more covered up.
She was more covered up, and I went, oh my God, okay.
Yeah, thank God they have a 15-year-old girl who's not having slits all the way up her butt crack. Like,
oh my
thank
God,
they gave her some shorts that are like covered around her butt.
Yes, I saw so much side boob in this episode. It was like unbelievable. And I mean, listen, I'm in my 30s. I'm not super prudy, but I actually couldn't help but feel bad for the actors, because here you go, landing a role on Star Trek, which is really highly rated. You're coming out the gate with these high expectations, and you show up to the costume department and they hold up a couple of strips of toilet paper basically and go, this is your costume. And you're like, what the hell? All right. So, okay, we're way going off the rails here. So this identified vessel appears, and it's a different type of vessel than we've ever experienced before on Star Trek, because it's both there and not there, which I think is very intriguing. And the scientist in me went, oh, it's Schrodinger's cat, which, for those of you who don't know the Schrodinger's cat principle, this scientist, Schrodinger, put a cat in a box and then decided, through some sort of laws of physics, which I don't completely understand, and maybe we need to have PJ back to break it down, that the cat was both, sometimes he would lift the lid and the cat would be alive, and then I think he put multiple cats in there, and sometimes they were dead. And so he surmised that the cat is both dead and alive at the same time, in like 2 separate realities, basically. And it just depends like which reality you lift the lid on, if the cat is dead or if it's alive. So this happened.
A horrible experiment.
Yeah, no, it happened like more than 100 years ago. So the same conventions weren't in place to like, you can't do that to cats. But I thought, this is a Schrodinger's cat ship right here. Like, it's there and it's not there at the same time. How do you wrap your head around something that's there and not there?
That was very cool. The ship was very cool. The little ball of light was very cool. It was kind of like a bubble, like a light bubble. Yeah. And that was very cool. And it just penetrated the shields like nothing. And it had the booming voice. And I thought all of that was very cool. But again, as a Christian, I was just so offended by their concept of God, just so offended. And I was when will this effing episode end? Oh, like, it just kept going.
I didn't see it that way because I don't practice any one religion. So, okay. So what are your thoughts on that? Because I had literally no thoughts. I was like, ooh, a cool ship that's there and not there. Neat.
And the ship was cool. The ship was cool, and the alien beings were cool. Yeah, no, all of that was cool. All of that was cool. What I didn't like was the whole like, these are my children, and they're like, this is our God, and we worship it and we fear it. And then they're basically boiling it down to, well, God is just like an alien entity that's more technologically advanced, and only basically it's kind of the argument that I hear a lot, because I'm a scientist and I also am a Christian. So people, I would get this a lot when I was training in school, is that people will say like, well, if you're a scientist, you can't also have a religion, because religion is for people who are unintelligent. It's for people who are not smart, because people who are smart and people who know science know that the whole world can be explained through science. And so only smart people would, be scientists, and only dumb people would be religious. And there's a lot of a lot of reasons for that belief. And so that's just kind of something that I've always faced, where I'm like, you can be both. You can be a smart, intelligent scientist and also have a religion. Like, you can do both.
Right.
And so I felt like this episode was kind of a throwback to that, right? Where it was like, these Edo are very like naive children who don't know any better, and they're just not smart. But the Enterprise, they're smart. And so they know better. They know this is just an alien species. And when they come down and, she's all like, you were up in the sky with God, so you must be gods too. And they're like, oh no, we're not gods. We're this advanced race, and that's all that it is. And, it just can be explained away by science, and you guys are just so like dumb,
I could see that. I did like when she said, you were up in the sky with God, so you must be gods. My first takeaway was, if somebody asks you if you are a god, you always say yes. Okay? Just say yes and be like, also, we're going to beam our kids off this planet and boom, bada, boom, 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 right? Like, Are you a god? Yes, honey, I am. Like, if you are asking,
I wonder if that breaks the Prime Directive. If you're just like, well, since you asked us, yes, we are a god. So we're going to need Wesley back because he's also a god. Well, okay, bye. Does that break the Prime Directive? Then I don't know. Well, are they allowed to claim godhood?
So backing up just a little bit, we find out while having colorful cocktails on the planet that there is no crime because there's only one punishment, and that punishment is death. And every day there's like a different zone. And if you commit a crime in that zone, that's like when you die. And so nobody is like, Tasha gives the example of like, you guys will kill someone for walking on the grass. And the woman with the poodly wig goes, well, no one's willing to risk death, so nobody will walk on the grass. Like, it's a perfect system. It works. Mm-hmm. And then they go, uh-oh, where's Wesley? And so they run to meet him. Meanwhile, he's playing ball with his friends and crashes into this little greenhouse and kind of crushes these little flowers in a nursery. And it turns out that nursery has the like white marker around it, which is
that tells you don't go past this or that will break a law.
Yes, exactly. That's the punishment zone. So they run over, and Wesley is going, I'm fine. Like, it's just some flower. Like, it's fine. And then here's where they go. The Edo say, okay, well, you've broken a law, so there's only one punishment. We have to administer the lethal injection. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's a big old problem for the Enterprise, understandably. But because, they're treating the Enterprise as guests, they say, well, we'll hold him till sundown and then we'll kill him. Which, thank you very much for your hospitality. Mm-hmm. Like, you're just going to extend his stay by a couple hours. Mm-hmm. But that gives the Enterprise time to sort of figure out like what to do. Something that really cracked me up was finally, the away team has been cut off from communication with the ship for a little bit. Wesley crashes into the flowers. They stop the lethal injection in the nick of time. And then Riker is able to contact the ship again. And he contacts the ship, and he's speaking to Picard on the bridge, and Beverly is there. And Riker goes, we've had an issue with a member of the away team. He doesn't want to say Wesley. And that to me was the equivalent of being like, is Beverly there? Take me off speaker. Like, that's totally what that was. Yeah. And I was dying over that because he's like, is Beverly there? So that killed me. And the whole concept of like one single punishment for every crime, it was dumb, but whatever.
I mean, it was effective, right? They had no crimes. They had no crimes at all. So that was effective.
That's true. So they bring this female aboard the ship because they want her to identify what that other Schrodinger's cat type of ship is. Like, is it there? Is it not there? Do you recognize it? And Data tells us that the ship is more advanced. It's like a more advanced race. It's not just one god. It's a more advanced race. It protects the simpler Edo, which I think that is so unethical. Like, how could you be so advanced and also be taking advantage of, like, preying on, like, the faith of, like, a less advanced race? Like, that's messed up. I don't like that. But they bring the girl aboard. She sees the ship and has like a panic moment, right? Where she's like, praying.
Well, she worships him. So so she's more like, she's overcome with adoration for the fact that she's so close to her god.
Thank you. And then, so this god ship starts coming towards the Enterprise. They beam her back down. And Picard says, I'm sorry that, Troy says, hey, she was really frightened. To which Picard says, I'm sorry that we had to even resort to bringing her aboard the ship to identify this alien ship, but I had to know. And I thought, it's the 24th century. Don't you have photographs or like a pad that you could bring down and be like, look at this picture on this pad. Is this?
Do you recognize this picture?
They bring her, which also I think it kind of breaks the Prime Directive, doesn't it? Like, he brings her aboard the ship that they're not.
They're pre-warp technology. Yeah, they're pre-warp civilization clearly. So yes, that totally breaks the Prime Directive, probably for them to even talk to them. I'm guessing they're pre-warp since they have no ships and they don't know anything about space and they've only seen the God ship like in space. So
yeah, and
they probably shouldn't have talked to them in the first place.
Yeah, you know, that's totally Prime Directive issues right there, which the Prime Directive really starts to play a bigger role in this episode because now, you know, we obviously can't have Wesley be put to death for trampling some flowers.
At least not in episode 7.
Right?
We need some more time with this character.
Right. No, we absolutely do. So Picard starts really weighing his options and he's talking more about the Prime Directive, which is to say we cannot interfere with the practices of another race, of an alien species, but I obviously can't let Wesley be put to death or any member of my crew be put to death for, you know, like, especially when we weren't even made like aware of these laws, like, before, like, we didn't know this was against the law. So I think this is really great Picard. He weighs the options heavily. He takes input from his crew. He has Data come to his quarters and he says, I need help, my friend, which I love that he uses that word, my friend, and asks him for help. What are your thoughts on this? This is a Data heavy moment, which I know you love Data. So what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought it was really sweet when Data was just like, what level of communication would you like? Like, how can I speak in a way that does not annoy you? And he's just like,
he was babbling earlier. Yeah.
It's like, I do not babble, sir. He's just like, you just may have problems with the way that I arrange my information, like arrange it more succinctly, you know? And then he's just like, you know what? I'm sorry for snapping at you. And he's just like, no, you were right. I do babble. Like, I totally do.
Yeah.
This was just pretty cute. It was cute. It was like Data kind of learning and growing and like learning social skills. So I thought that was really sweet.
It was, you know, I don't know if you noticed this, but I like to look at like background stuff or like little details. Data's, what eye is it? His left eye, the one that's like closest to Picard, is so like red and raw looking, but his other eye is fine. And I thought, oh, poor Brent Spiner must have been having some issues with like the contacts irritating his eyes or like the 50 pounds of makeup that they have to, like that paste we have to slather.
Yeah.
And the more I looked at it, I was like, oh my God, look at that. Like it just kept getting redder and redder because I'm sure it took, you know, more than an hour to film that scene because you have to do multiple takes and multiple angles. The poor guy was very clearly in some sort of distress with his eyeball and kept it together to act through these scenes. And I went, what a pro, because I would have been like, something's wrong with my eye, you know, I would have had to stop everything.
I did not notice that, but yeah, being an actor is like a rough life, right? The glamorous part is I don't know when, because all of the acting seems kind of horrible that you have to be there for like 12, 16 hours a day and all that stuff. But thanks for doing it, guys, because you did contribute to our entertainment for clearly 30 years. So
Absolutely. I watched on a panel a while back that they said that they would often finish filming between like 3 and 5 in the morning. It was just like these epically long days and you're in an uncomfortable uniform. And if you're somebody who has hair and makeup done specifically like Michael Dorn or Brent Spiner or
for Data.
They even between scenes, like you can't go to your trailer and take off that makeup and that wig. Like you are just stuck in that because, you know, for continuity, you can't take off the Klingon head and then put it back on slightly askew and it would look weird, you know, between, well, and also they like splice the scenes together and it's not always shot like from beginning to end, like from beginning of episode to the, so in the beginning of the episode, his forehead piece would be like crooked and then like straight again. It's just, it's, people think that acting is so like glamorous and I'm sure there's like portions of it that are more glamorous than our like day-to-day 9-to-5 jobs, but oh my God, it sounds awful to be honest. Like,
agreed.
Yeah. Anyway, so now we have a shorter uniform at 38 minutes and 35 seconds when Picard and Data are having that sweet little heart to heart when Picard's going, I really don't know what to do. And I don't want to like endanger the rest of my crew if this like God ship, you know, attacks us for taking Wesley away. And Beverly Crusher walks in to like implore Picard, which makes sense. You know, she's the mom. But when she walks in, a shorter uniform walks by in the background and I went, there's one. We're still
missed that.
we're still not out of shorter uniform territory. But I love that Beverly is upset and still does her job because she's a badass
very
Starfleet
professional.
Yeah, she's a badass Starfleet officer and she knows her role. So she's upset. She starts getting a little bit like shrill, which I would. My son for being endangered.
Yeah.
The son that I don't have kids.
Please, duty schmooties. As soon as I heard that my kid was in danger, I'd be like, forget Starfleet, forget Picard. I'm beaming down myself.
Right.
And I'm getting my son. And these little people down here, these little Edo, they don't know how to fight. They don't have weapons. all I need is one phaser. I'm taking them all out. Like, done.
And Ito did say, like, you're so much more advanced than us. You can just beam your kid back and we will just record in our history that this happened and that he's like not like he's like a fugitive from this planet, but we can't do anything. So once you orbit, like, we're out of your hair, you're out of our hair.
Yeah, so they were like, just do it.
I would go rogue and like run into transporter.
I would absolutely go rogue. I would start a whole war, a whole international incident. So that's probably why I wouldn't have my kid on the ship with me. For stuff like that, for reasons like that. Like, it's just, but yeah, so I do appreciate that she was super professional and kept everything together and didn't cause any kind of crazy wars to happen.
Yeah, which, hey, wars have been started for lesser reasons than a kid being endangered, for sure. So at this point now, the crew tries to leave. They go back to the planet. They say, listen, I don't know what the resolution is, but we just can't allow you to kill one of our members of our crew. So we're just going to take him. At which point that God ship kind of prevents the crew from beaming off. Mm-hmm. And then Picard gives this very impassioned speech about justice and how, like, there can be no justice if the rules are absolute. And apparently that very impassioned Picard Shakespearean type of speech, which only lasts about 15 seconds, does it for the God ship. And then they allow the crew to beam off and then they zip away. And I just thought, normally when we're talking about issues of the Prime Directive, you're trying to explain it to the other race. You're trying to find some sort of compromise where maybe neither one of you is super happy with the result, but at least like there's some understanding. None of that happened. Like the poor Ito were like, so we just got screwed. Okay. And then the ship goes, warp 6, engage, and that's it. Like, that's it. Well,
and then they said, because the Ito were saying, well, God will judge you. God's going to come against you if you don't follow our rules. God's going to punish you himself. And then when the God ship prevents them from beaming across, then those whatever police officers of the Ito were saying, like, see, that's true. Like, our God has stopped you, so that way we can punish you. And then he makes a speech. And then as the God ship changes their mind and the transportation happens, then Picard says, I guess your God ship agrees with us. Yeah. And so it's just kind of like, it was not very good resolution. There was no satisfying ending. This episode was just completely pointless. I will say at least they didn't have the weird subplot of like some other alien race like murdering each other on the ship or something like we had in our previous episode.
Yes.
Like, so at least they didn't have some or actually in all of our previous episodes, I think we've always had like a planet that's about to die, a ship that's about to be destroyed, some horrible thing happening on the other side that's kind of a subplot.
You're right.
But I will say at least we didn't have that this time. There was no subplot.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't much of a main plot either. So I'm just very happy that this episode's done.
I've said about all I want to say about this train wreck episode. Any final thoughts for you?
I would like to never watch this episode again. So if you're somebody who loved this episode, I would love for you to send us an email and tell us why, because there could easily be many facets of this episode that I totally missed because I was too busy being offended by all the parts I hate. So if you like this episode, please send us an email and tell us why. Help us see the light. You can send us an email to info@thetngpodcast.com.
I'm going to throw up those pictures on our Instagram of the really horrible outfits on our Instagram, the TNG Podcast. Shereese, as always, I love hanging out with you and I love talking Star Trek The Next Generation.
Yeah, this has been super fun.
Yeah, next week we are going to review Season 1, Episode 8, The Battle. So thanks for hanging out with us, guys. We'll see you next week.
All right, bye, guys. Thanks for geeking out with us. Be sure to join the crew at thetngpodcast.com to be the first to know when we do our live shows or host events exclusively for our members. We'll see you next time.